massive complexity of veins and vascular system.
That is electricity. Electricity moves blood. Do you know that electricity was generated underneath some of the largest like ancient cities, these energy centers, like Peking, which used to be called Tartar City. This has water flowing, but it's unnecessarily elaborate. It's not like the Moors using springs to create fountains in every city and every train station, every temple, right? It's not that. It's much more sophisticated. There are two types of water on Earth. There is this magnetic water and there is the electric water. And if those two meet, you can call it black and white, yin and yang, right? Anode, cathode. If those types of water meet, they create electricity. That's how you get the Hanging Gardens of Babylon moving water up spirals. You can put a copper spiral into a waterfall or even pour water out of a tap, and it will move up instead of down. This is the geometry of our realm. This is electric coming from the sky, magnetic coming from the earth. This is why rainwater falls and water in the oceans is evaporating. It's the salt crystals within the seawater that causes it to then evaporate. So this is electric and magnetic. And you can explain everything on Earth with that one theory. Electric in the firmament, magnetic on the terraformer. So you have magnetic, electric, and in between you have these etheric sparks. This cloud, what we call cloud cover. This is the lightning moving back up to rebalance, recalibrate. This is why we have arches, because they're large magnets. If you look at an old world building, you have an arch every single building you go into. That is the magnet. That is the positive, negative. That is your body. You have one positive, one negative hand. That's why you shake with your right hand.
So, yeah. Charles, before we hit the questions, okay, which people in the chat have got, understandably so, my question would be about the heart. When I was having my total hip operation, which I was, kind of done, and I'm pleased I had it done. Brilliant, really worked well. They took my blood pressure, obviously, daily. So the blood pressure device is basically an inflated strap on my arm. But what that does is it is able to put pressure on particular veins and arteries. And that then tells you whether or not the aortic side of the heart, the pressure of the aortic side to the pulmonary side. So the aortic's pushing out blood into the arteries, and the pulmonary side is taking blood from the veins back into the heart. So why would they use a blood pressure monitoring device such as an inflated bag if it was electrical impulses? Why wouldn't I expect them to use some kind of copper ring or maybe some kind of what's the word for it? I did know this one. Rectification, a rectification device to check my blood pressure. Why would they be using that way if it wasn't blood?
Okay, so I mean, the people that are using these devices are doing what they are taught to do at medical school, and this is continued for many decades. But if we go back to the 1800s, everything was copper, like literally everything, even the beds. The beds were copper, the utensils were copper. Every device that was used was copper from the bowl that you like clean things in, and that has been removed. So we are not using copper anymore for even hospital beds. Now we also used to use silk and we used to use cotton. Why did we use silk and cotton? And now we're using these synthetic materials inside the hospitals and wards, and that is because cotton was removed and copper was removed. Cotton, copper, copper, cotton. silk, not just silk. There were also other like linens. In fact, they're still called linens. So the truth is in the vocabulary forever, like a radiator, radium. We'll talk about that another time. The truth is already in the vocabulary because the vocabulary comes from this old world. You can call it Moorish Empire, or anyway. I like to put put less of a label on the empire of the past and more importance on where the truth lies, because it's a thread throughout everything. So if the linens were called linen, but now they're not made of linen, they're made of synthetic materials, plastics taken from refined synthetic man-made materials, and there's less and less percentage of copper in even the clothes you buy, and you have to start paying more money for it. And linen shirt, who has a linen shirt nowadays? It's
No.
the wealthy do, I'm sure they do, but yeah, I mean, we don't have linens, but we still call them linens because they used to be linens because they're high electrical function. They have a higher electrical resonance. Everything is frequency. Everything's frequency. Remember frequency. So when you're talking about retrification, that is also all about frequency. The very word itself. Semispora sorry, semisopia. You said that's a beautiful word. I have to use that. I'm gonna steal that. But the copper utensils used, the copper even knives. Spatulas. It wasn't like bleached wood. It was these were all copper. Everything was, even the piping was copper, and they removed that from every hospital, every home. They removed the copper piping. Why did they do that? Why did they remove the copper piping? It was literally the highest frequency material on Earth to replenish, destroy bacteria, pull toxins out of the water for literally hundreds of years. Why did they remove it? What was the motivation?
I can answer that. I was a plumber. I was a plumber for like 17 years.
Okay, I'm out of my league.
We stopped putting copper in because of the price. So we used either speed vet plastic pipe most times. The only time we ever kind of like used it was when we were doing certain tails in the kitchen, because there would have to be earth tags put on. In case there was any electrical hit the pipe, and it'd be no good on plastic pipe, so we'd have to put earth tags on. So then we'd use copper. But other than that, that was cost. I've got some questions I'm going to bring up. Right, we've got from Paranormal Short Sessions. Hello, Keith. Glad you're here. His question is, and I'm going to skip the first part. Who are the Tartarians? We pretty much know who the Tartarians are. Yeah, they're Moorish people, aren't they? The Moors.
Yes, it's when the Moors connected and created a one world empire that originated in Mu, hence the word Moor. But Moor today is the Hebrew word for teacher. So they were really kind of people that moved to different civilizations, teaching everyone this esoteric knowledge. And in turn, they were given, I guess, food, somewhere to stay, materials, apprentices. A lot of the Greeks ended up moving to Africa, sometimes for 10, 15 years, to learn about the truth of the realm, the esoteric sacred geometry of this world, so they could then take all of those stories and retell them in Greece. Many of the Greek philosophers ended up in Egypt, in Algeria, in Morocco, learning. Now the problem is we think that is in North Africa, as I've said earlier. I don't believe it was there. I think it was in America. I think the New World is the Old World, and everything has been inverted. So Troy was York or Yort. Every time we had a reset, they changed the vocabulary, they changed the alphabet too. They added letters like J so that we wouldn't know that the J was at the beginning of the year for Jahre, which is the old German. And Jahre was not a number one. There are hundreds of examples of that, of the J not being the number one, which means it's actually not 1700s, it's 700s, or it's not 1800s. Yeah.
Because Charles, they there's a lot of countries that still don't use the Gregorian calendar, isn't there? You've got Ethiopia uses the Ethiopian calendar, or the Ge'ez. Nepal uses the Vikram Samvat. The Iran uses the Solar Hirish calendar.
Mm.
And certain Orthodox Catholic churches use the Julian calendar for well, they still use it for teaching. Put it this way, they use it for teaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, modified versions are still used of Gregorian calendar, including Japan, North Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand.
Yeah, a lot of those countries still have the like Chinese calendar. So over there, it would now be the year of the fire horse. There are 4 different horses. There are 4 different zodiacs. It's very, very interesting to link up the Chinese zodiac to the Babylonian zodiac and the